The movie Ghost affects me. It has ever since I was a little kid. I remember it clearly. I was in a Blockbuster video, perusing the aisles for something to take home, when I came upon a striking VHS cover. It was, of course, Ghost. I felt deeply intrigued by it. I don't know why the poster had that effect on me. It just draws you in. Also, the idea of the lead character being a ghost gave me chills. Movies usually don't follow a character past their death, so this was something new. The movie Ghost is electric. The ingredients, if you will, from its unexpected director, to its not yet A-list actors, to the groundbreaking special effects of its time, all of it comes together to make a genuinely great movie. And get ready, because it's going to make you feel things. Okay, my friends, it's time to sit back, relax, grab a handful of clay, and join me as we explore the forgotten blockbuster, Ghost. On the back of the DVD of Ghost, it sells the fact that this is a genre mashup unlike anything we've seen before. Love story, comedy, supernatural tale, sleek mystery thriller. It's a pretty decent pitch in terms of describing the genres of this film. Come to think of it, my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future, is also a genre mashup. It's a sci-fi comedy action period piece romance. Even though it's juggling so many genres, it never gets distracting. The same goes for Ghost. But when you look a little closer, you'll realize how unlikely it was that this movie came together as well as it did. The movie is about Sam Wheat and Molly Jensen, who are very much in love and just starting their life together when Sam is abruptly murdered one night. As he navigates the afterlife while keeping an eye on Molly, he learns that his murder wasn't just a fluke, it was something more sinister. With the help of a con woman psychic named Oda Mae, Sam learns to adapt to the afterlife while also protecting Molly from impending danger. Jerry Zucker, the co-director of the hit spoof comedy Airplane, was chosen to direct. Airplane was full of zany, over-the-top comedy. Imagine writer Bruce Joel Rubin's surprise when he found out that his supernatural love story was going to be directed by the Airplane guy. Up until this point, Jerry had never shown any hint that he would be a good fit for this material. Rubin had wanted a more serious director like Martin Scorsese or Steven Spielberg to make his movie. Yeah, well, who doesn't, Bruce? Zucker had directed an episode of the TV series Police Squad, which would spin off a trilogy of Naked Gun films. He also co-wrote 2 of the Naked Gun films with his brother David Zucker and Jim Abrams. He also directed the hilarious parody film Top Secret, starring Val Kilmer. The most down-to-earth film he had done before Ghost was a film called Ruthless People starring Danny DeVito, Bette Midler, and Judge Reinhold. Again, though, it was another straight-up comedy. No one could have predicted what an effective dramatic director he would actually be. In fact, Bruce Joel Rubin has gone on record saying that he cried when he found out who would be sitting in the director's chair of Ghost. He thought that Zucker was going to turn his dramatic film into something closer to Beetlejuice. However, the unusual choice of Jerry Zucker is one of the coolest things about this movie. The fact that Zucker pulled off the biggest hit of 1990 and brought such a wonderful balance to the whole thing really shows that you can't judge a book by its cover. It reminds me of the way people reacted to Michael Keaton being cast as Batman in 1989, and look how that turned out. When Bruce and Jerry got together to discuss the film, Jerry let him know that he had some issues with the script. Although this was hard to swallow for Bruce, ultimately Jerry's heart was in the right place. Zucker started with removing scenes from the script that were distracting. He removed a scene where Oda Mae, while possessed by Sam, had full-on sex with Molly. Like, what? That would have been so jarring. He also had to convince Bruce that having Oda Mae die at the end of the movie wouldn't be a good idea. You see, originally, Oda Mae was supposed to be killed by the bad guys. Then she repossesses her own corpse and fights them off, which would have been just, well, maybe awesome, alright, but admittedly wrong for this film. It would have also begged the question, why couldn't Sam repossess his own body too? But then we're getting into zombie territory, so yeah. The iconic pottery scene is super sensual, but it used to continue into the bedroom for a full-on sex scene. Zucker wisely decided to cut it out because nothing was going to top the classier scene that had just happened. You know, I like that Zucker is willing to let the audience fill in the gaps in terms of sex. These days, it's almost a requirement to show audiences more than they asked for in those regards. I'm no prude, but there's something to be said about leaving some things to the imagination. By the way, the part where Sam messes up Molly's clay masterpiece was a blooper. Patrick Swayze accidentally demolished it, but he and Demi kept on with the scene, and Jerry, being the instinctual director he was, just kept on rolling. And it makes the scene more human and charming as a result. Jerry also worked with Bruce Joel Rubin to expand the movie beyond its original scope. For instance, instead of Willie breaking into the apartment multiple times like he did in the script, Zucker pushed to have Sam follow him around the city so he could experience new places. He felt that the script needed to move faster and to have more story, so he worked intimately with Rubin to shape the film into what it eventually became. Even though Rubin and Zucker's partnership started off a little rocky, they went on to become dear friends who would come to respect each other deeply. Both of them put their egos aside and worked their butts off to make the best movie possible. Now, just because I listed a bunch of things that Zucker got right, that doesn't mean his instincts were correct all the time. For instance, he really didn't want Patrick Swayze as Sam Wheat. He thought Swayze wasn't a good fit due to his role in Roadhouse. He thought Roadhouse was a low-level film. And I disagree with that. Roadhouse is freaking awesome. Where else would you get lines like this?
I used to f guys like you in prison. What? Just kidding.
Although Zucker was sold on Demi Moore from the beginning, he got cold feet when she showed up one day with a much shorter haircut. He thought it would be a disaster, especially since Patrick hadn't cut his hair yet and still had a ponytail. Zucker looked at the two of them and thought, the girl looks like a guy and the guy looks like a girl, and he was starting to sweat. He feared people would think, oh no, the guy from Airplane is screwing everything up. However, he later admitted that he was wrong and that Demi's haircut ended up looking iconic. Also, Zucker originally cut the scene where Carl spills coffee on himself and takes his shirt off while trying to seduce Molly. He thought it was a corny scene that didn't work. However, he later found out that the scene was essential for the audience to fully hate Carl's guts. Ironically, in test screenings, audiences didn't fully hate him until he moved in on Sam's girl. You can kill a guy, but you can't mess with his girlfriend. You got that? So he put the scene back in. One of the major assets that Jerry Zucker brought to this project was his ability to admit when he was wrong. He knew he needed to have an open mind when making this film. It was, after all, his first serious movie. Now, back to Swayze. Bruce Joel Rubin saw a Barbara Walters interview with Patrick where he started crying as he talked about his recently deceased father. It showed that this rugged actor had a soft side. That's when Rubin knew he would be perfect for the role of Sam Wheat. Huge Hollywood stars like Tom Cruise, Tom Hanks, Bruce Willis, Michael J. Fox, and Harrison Ford had already turned the part down. I am fascinated by the idea of Michael J. Fox starring in Ghost. When he was on The View in 2023, he admitted to Whoopi Goldberg that he had been in early talks with Paramount to star in the movie, but thought, in his own words, it would never work. Obviously, he regretted this decision after the movie came out. I'm sure Bruce Willis regretted turning it down too, but he eventually warmed up to playing a ghost 9 years later. With Patrick, the script had been sitting unread at his house for months. After his wife kept urging him to read it, he finally did. He instantly connected with the material. He knew he had to do whatever it took to get this role. Like I said, Zucker wasn't convinced. Decades later, Bruce Joel Rubin admitted that he went behind Jerry's back and called Patrick's agents to have him come in to read for the part. And once he did, he ended up making everyone in the room cry. Jerry Zucker finally admitted that he was dead wrong. Since he was playing a ghost for most of the movie, Swayze had to rely on his ability to react. And let me tell you, he's one of the best reactors I've ever seen. He displays so much range and nuance in the film. It shows what an amazing actor he truly was. The scene where Sam finds out he's dead was filmed with a realistic dummy of Patrick. To do this, Patrick had plaster applied to his head and body, causing him to panic when the stuff leaked into his mouth and esophagus. From then on, he never did another plaster molding session again. Later, while shooting the actual scene, he had a chilling moment where he looked down at the life-size dummy of himself and lost it. It reminded him of his father's open casket funeral. The painful memory he had pushed away for so long was now rushing back at him. After several takes, he was able to get through it, but the look on his face was more real than expected. There was a lot of scenes where Sam's ghost interacts with people he can't touch. To achieve this, the crew would film the scene twice with each actor separately. That way, when composited together in post-production, it seemed like Patrick was truly a ghost that could pass through people and objects. In Patrick's memoir, Time of My Life, which was co-written by his wife Lisa Niemi, he talks about an especially difficult night of filming. While shooting the scene where he discovers Carl has betrayed him, he noticed a crowd of curious onlookers were starting to laugh at him. He was doing take after take of his character yelling and punching at the air without another actor to bounce it off of. Finally, he had enough. This is what he wrote about the situation. "Shut the f*** up," I yelled, my adrenaline pumping from the emotion of the scene. "You want to get out here and do this yourself? You think this is easy?" People looked startled, but they shut up. And when we went back to shoot the scene again, you could hear a pin drop. Nobody made a peep until we finished the whole take. When Jerry yelled cut, the whole crowd broke into applause. This role was no walk in the park for Patrick Swayze. It took a lot of concentration and commitment. I couldn't imagine anyone else in the role of Sam. It's easy to look at the effects in Ghost and say that they're dated, but when I watch an old movie, I get a real joy out of putting myself back in time and imagining what it felt like to see those effects with fresh eyes. Like the creativity of Sam seeing the innards of someone as he passes through them is so cool, seriously. This happens again when he passes through a door as well, and I have to say, what a creative and unusual choice that was. It takes the audience and puts them in Sam's perspective. You really feel like you're experiencing the afterlife with him. And while the demons do look a little wonky in some shots, I still think they're effective to this day. The thing that really enhanced them, though, was the sound design. The creepy and demonic screams they emit were done by taking the sound of babies crying and reversing, slowing, and pitching those sounds down. It's kind of brilliant taking something as innocent as a baby crying and mutating it into the sound of your movie's demons. Here, let's try it real quick. Here's the regular baby crying sound. And then here's reversed and pitched down. Yeah, you get the idea. Crazy baby demon. Nice. The whole cast was top-notch. I think it's Demi Moore's best role to date. Her character is dealing with loss the whole movie, but she does so with a lot of dignity and courage. This movie made Demi Moore the highest paid actress in Hollywood for a while, and she would go on to star in the triple whammy successes of A Few Good Men, Indecent Proposal, and Disclosure just a couple of years later. And Whoopi Goldberg is so funny in this, but she's not just funny, she's nuanced. She knows when to play it serious, and it makes her performance a layered one. Patrick Swayze really championed for Whoopi to get this role. At one point, he even said he wouldn't make the movie without her. Their chemistry had to be strong for audiences to believe in their story, and Swayze knew they would click. Luckily, after seeing her audition tape, the filmmakers were sold. Whoopi ended up showing her gratitude to Patrick and Jerry Zucker during her acceptance speech at the Academy Awards. She and Bruce Joel Rubin walked away with a gold statue that night. 2 years later, Whoopi would go on to star in the gigantic comedy hit Sister Act. Tony Goldwyn, who looks like a 90s Michael Cera, was really good as Carl. I love the anxiety and fear he displays throughout the movie. At first, he's actually pretty funny and likable. The elevator scene in which he and Sam deliberately make the passengers uncomfortable is funny. It also demonstrates that the two of them were very close friends before things started to take a turn for the worse. His wife, Jane Muskie, was also the production designer on Ghost, so they got to go to work every day together. Isn't that cute? For a while after the movie was released, he would get hate from people in real life because of what his character did to Patrick Swayze. One time while at a restaurant, a waitress kept staring at him with malice. She asked if he was an actor, and when she found out he was in Ghost, she said, "I'm so sorry, I knew I hated you, but I didn't know where from." You see, Tony, you have made an impact. He would go on to star in the hit TV series Scandal, and he's also an accomplished director. The character of Willie Lopez was convincingly played by the late stand-up comedian Rick Aviles. While the Willie Lopez character was an ominous and threatening presence in the film, Rick Aviles was, in real life, a really nice guy. On the commentary of the DVD, Jerry Zucker mentions how it's ironic that Rick and Tony Goldwyn play the bad guys because they were easily the nicest guys on set. Sadly, Rick passed away in 1995 due to an AIDS-related pulmonary embolism. After winning an Oscar for Best Screenplay with Ghost, Bruce Joel Rubin would go on to direct My Life, starring Michael Keaton. It's his only director credit to date. He also wrote Jacob's Ladder, The Time Traveler's Wife, and Deep Impact. This man knows how to make you cry, okay? I'm not saying I did or anything, but I did, so yeah. So what happened to Jerry Zucker after Ghost broke box office records? I was surprised to find out that he only directed 2 more movies after this one. 5 years after Ghost, he directed the medieval adventure movie First Night, which was a flop. 6 years after that, he directed his last feature film, a road comedy called Rat Race, which was a modest success in 2001. I loved that film when it came out. I think it's high time to give it a rewatch. It was like a modern version of It's a Mad, 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 Mad World. Jerry has been keeping busy as a producer ever since. When Ghost came out, it was a gigantic hit, grossing $217 million in the US for a worldwide total of $505 million. Imagine that. $500 million in 1990s money. In 1991, Ghost was the #1 most rented VHS that year. Don't you love how they made the tape ghost colored? That was a nice touch. It inspired endless parodies, like this scene from Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear. It's worth noting that Naked Gun 2 was directed by Jerry Zucker's brother, David Zucker. Jerry was also a producer on that film, which is cool. What are brothers for, you know? There was a Japanese remake of the film called Ghost, In Your Arms Again, that came out in 2010. This time, the ghost is played by a woman. There was also a Broadway musical version of Ghost that debuted in 2011. Recently in 2023, Channing Tatum announced that his production company, Free Association, has the rights to Ghost, and that he plans on starring as the male lead. This would mark the 5th time a movie starring Patrick Swayze has been remade. So far it's happened with Red Dawn, Point Break, Dirty Dancing, Roadhouse, and now, most likely, Ghost. When it comes to Hollywood, they love saying ditto. Okay, so I have to address something. Patrick Swayze's death. I remember watching Ghost with my sister back in the day and saying to her, it's gonna be so weird when Patrick Swayze dies one day. And she agreed that it would add a spooky layer to the movie that would be hard to ignore. And as we all know, Patrick Swayze sadly passed away on September 14th, 2008, after a heroic battle with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I couldn't watch the movie for years after. However, as time went on, I slowly realized that I was ready to pop this classic back in the DVD player for a viewing. And you know what? It's just as good as it's ever been. Classics don't die, even if the people in them do. Patrick cemented his legacy with this one. It's a movie that will live on forever. If you haven't seen it yet, what are you waiting for? Hey, thanks for watching. I'm Scotty Dunn. Feel free to go ahead and check these videos out. See you next time.